One of our fundamental design guidance was to ensure that everything that's in the cockpit in the airplane deserved to be there. Every switch, every button, every knob had to have a specific purpose, and anything that did not was actually put into the touch screens and into the displays, which really leaves for a very, very clean cockpit. That also opens up the space, brings the glare shield down a little bit more, and you have just a fabulous view if you're the pilot or the co-pilot, but also even this passenger sitting in the back of the airplane. They have these huge windows that's really unheard of for this type of airplane.
Hello again, and thank you for joining us for episode 96 of the Aviation News Talk podcast. This is a show about general aviation, and this is a newsmakers edition where we talk with people in aviation who are making the news. I'm your host, Max Trescott, and a few weeks ago, Cirrus Aircraft announced the Generation 2 of the SF-50 Vision Jet, and just 3 days later, I was sitting in the very first G2 talking with Vision Jet product manager Matt Bergwall to learn all about the jet. In a few minutes, you'll hear that conversation. But first, if you're new to the show, we have a weekly news show that shares pilot safety tips and general aviation news from around the world. And if you enjoy this show, please click on the subscribe button on whatever app you're using to listen to the show so that new episodes will download automatically to your phone each week. And after the show, if you find yourself wanting just a little more aviation content, go on out to our Patreon site at aviationnewstalk.com/awesome. Click on the tab called Posts. There's also a link to it in the show notes. And if you feel that you get value from this show and you're also in a position to donate a few dollars a month, well, you can sign up to do that right there on the Patreon site. Again, that's at aviationnewstalk.com/awesome. Now here's our conversation with Matt Bergwall. And now let me tell you a little bit about Matt Bergwall. Matt's a graduate of the University of North Dakota, which has one of the largest university aviation programs here in the U.S., and for the past 12 years, he's worked for Cirrus Aircraft in a variety of marketing positions. And for the last year and a half, he's been director of my favorite airplane, the Cirrus Vision Jet. Well, Matt, it's great to have you here at the Cirrus Vision Center in Knoxville, Tennessee. Welcome to the Aviation News Talk podcast.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Well, I'm so happy that we could sit here inside one of your new Generation 2 jets and talk about this exciting new product. Now, we talked about a year and a half ago about the Vision Jet, but for folks who missed that episode, can you just kind of go ahead and give the 28,000-foot view of the overall of the original Vision Jet, and then we'll talk about this new one?
Yeah, the Vision Jet we introduced about a little over 2 years ago, and so far we have over 90 deliveries, and we have a lot of people absolutely loving this airplane. Probably the biggest thing people like about it is its ease of use, how easy it is to fly in terms for a turbine-powered aircraft. But probably the one thing that, as we're sitting in this airplane here today, is the view that's available to everybody within the cabin. When you're up in the air at flight levels, there's no other view that's better than this.
Let's talk about the view, because I've always thought that that's one of the big differentiators. It's obvious to me that the avionics and the layout of the cockpit here is just it's a minimal footprint compared to most jets. So explain what's different and why the windows are so big.
Absolutely. One of our fundamental design guidance was to ensure that everything that's in the cockpit in the airplane deserved to be there. Every switch, every button, every knob had to have a specific purpose, and anything that did not was actually put into the touch screens and into the displays, which really leaves for a very, very clean cockpit. That also opens up the space, brings the glare shield down a little bit more, and you have just a fabulous view if you're the pilot or the co-pilot, but also even this passenger sitting in the back of the airplane. They have these huge windows that's really unheard of for this type of airplane, and they can just have a panoramic 360 view of just the beautiful landscape that's surrounding them.
Let's talk about some of the other things that differentiate the original Vision Jet from other jets out there. So what about some of the key things that we have that are different?
Some of the key things about the Vision Jet is, first of all, there's only one jet engine on there. So it's a single engine jet. And what that translates to is an aircraft that it's easy for our customers to transition from our SR series airplane. They're used to a single engine there, one throttle, same thing for the Vision Jet. Also, for the ease of use for our customers making that transition, one of the really cool things about this airplane is its ability to actually not only go fast when you want it to go fast, but also slow down when you want it to go slow down. I mean, you can be in a 1,500 foot per minute descent. You can pull the thrust level back to idle, And you can all of a sudden start putting down the flaps at 190 knots or the gear at 210. And that would actually slow down the aircraft to actually approach speeds while you're descending. That's unheard of for a turbine-powered airplane, where you usually have to level off, dirty it up, and then go back down. And probably the one feature that probably sets the Vision Jet apart from everything else is the Cirrus airframe parachute system. It was a design that was built into the Vision Jet from day one, and that just gives you that last out if anything happens in the airplane.
Well, I've had a heck of a lot of fun flying this airplane. As I mentioned, it's become my new favorite airplane. Let's talk about Generation 2. What's different? What can people expect with the new version?
So the Generation 2 Vision Jet takes our current airplane, which is already the world-changing first single-engine personal jet, and makes it even more capable and even more easier to fly. Some of the key changes to the airplane is now its ability to fly from flight level 280 now all the way up to 310. So what does 3,000 extra feet get you? Well, it gets you a few different things. First of all, it's more fuel efficient, so it will increase your range. So the airplane will fly about 100 nautical miles more. It will also be able to carry more on the intermediate missions. So let's say you have an 800 nautical mile trip. I can actually carry 150 more pounds in the airplane. That's an extra person just because of the fuel savings from flying at flight level 310. The airplane is also RVSM equipped, so you're able to fly above flight level 290. What this means is if a pilot is certified, meaning they just need an endorsement, and if you have the operational approval for whatever your aviation authority is, the FAA is kind of nice. You really don't need any authorization, just as long as you're flying within the United States. And you have a Generation 2 airplane, you can fly above flight level 290. Another feature that is new to the airplane is Perspective Touch plus Avionics. So we have upgraded the Avionics to the next generation Perspective Touch system, which allows for faster processing speeds. So you're able to zoom, you're able to do your control. It's just that much quicker. It also gives you some better resolution on your screens, so you can see everything so much more crisper, whether it's a synthetic vision or if you're looking at an approach plate in the split screen mode, you're able to see everything just that much better. Perspective Touch Plus also allows us to put some additional features into the airplane, like Flight Stream, for example. So we can now use our mobile devices and connect them to the avionics to transfer flight plans, to even text message using your phone via the Iridium network. I mean, it's a tremendous system that really brings your outside planning into the airplane. The Autothrottle is another advancement in the aircraft as well. So what's the Autothrottle? Well, with the push of the button, you can now hold an airspeed on your airplane. It's a lot like the cruise control in your car. One of the great things with the Autothrottle is just imagine yourself in the approach environment. ATC gives you a heading, 130, descend to maintain 3,000 feet, and slow to 170. Well, boy, when you start thinking about it, that's a lot of steps. A lot of things are happening in that one little sequence. But now with just a touch of the button and a few things, automation will take care of all that for you. Huge ease of use improvement in the airplane.
So let's talk a little bit about cruise speed. I understand this one is faster. What were the speeds on the original version, and what can you do now?
So one of our requirements for flying above flight level 310 is we still want the airplane to maintain at least 300 knots. So what we ended up doing, we worked with Williams International, and we turned up the thrust schedule from flight level 240 all the way up to 310, that you not only get 305 knots in a standard day at 310, but it also allows you to go a little bit faster at flight level 27280 compared to the original Vision Jet. The actual air speeds are about 6 to 10 knots faster, depending on the altitude.
And I understand that you've got some new batteries. What's the difference with these?
So we went to what we call intelligent batteries. We're from our lead acid battery to now the True Blue TB17 batteries. Biggest advantage of these batteries is, one, they're a lot lighter. Two, they maintain their voltage until they're entirely depleted. So when you do start your airplane, you have a pretty predictable start. And that allows for quicker starts and cooler starts. And then 3, one of my more favorite features of the battery is you now can start using the battery in all temperatures. So if it's a cold day outside, you have the plane sitting outside for 4 or 5 hours as you run to a meeting. You come back. You don't have to worry about hooking up a GPU. You don't have to worry about bringing the plane in a hangar so the batteries can warm up. You can start right there on the spot.
Wow, that's a big deal. So when I was in training, my recollection is we had to use a GPU if the temperature was below 0. Is that right?
That's correct.
So this will now go down, what, to minus 40 or something like that?
Yep, to where the airframe is limited to, minus 40, or where their fuel is limited to, minus 40 degrees.
Okay, so on a day like that, could I ask you to do the pre-flight instead of me?
Yeah, maybe we'll flip a coin.
Well, you're from Minnesota. I think you're better qualified to pre-flight in those kinds of conditions. So I understand that you started shipping with a new wing, when I'm sure that's part of the G2 as well. Talk about how you've cleaned up the wing and what that was all about.
So yes, we did clean up the wing a little bit. It is a lot more streamlined and clean when you look at it. What we did is we removed the boundary layer energizers, BLEs, that are just aft or just forward of the ailerons. We also removed the fence that's between the aileron and the flap. And what we did was we just put a T-tab that really goes right along the trailing edge of the aileron that really gives you the same aerodynamic efficiencies as what those other items that we took off.
And so the BLEs, of course, are pretty small little, I guess they're about the size of a Monopoly house, maybe a little bit smaller along the underside of the wing. Tell folks what those used to do.
So the BLEs, their main purpose was to maintain airflow to the ailerons at high airspeeds. So the airflow would not separate and essentially miss the aileron. So now that little T-tab that goes around the trailing edge of the aileron essentially catches that airflow and allows you to have aileron effectiveness.
Got it. All right. Makes total sense. So I'm curious. First question I was asked by someone who was thinking about getting a Vision Jet is, are you going to continue to ship the original Generation 1? And if not, do you have some option packages going forward? What's the product structure look like?
So all of our deliveries going forward will be the Generation 2 aircraft. There will be opportunities to put some new features on the Generation 2 on the Generation 1 airplanes. For example, Flight Stream. Flight Stream will be available to pretty much all of our current fleet. Another example is the noise in the airplane. We did bring the cabin noise down by adding a passive system, throughout the airplane. That will be available to all of our current Vision Jet customers.
Well, let's talk a little bit about pricing. What were the original prices, and what's the difference with the Generation 2 looking forward?
So original prices, in about 2012, we came out with the Vision Jet price of $1.96 for the base airplane. Remember, too, that $1.96 was in 2012 dollars. In today's dollars, the new Vision Jet is about $2.38 million for the base, and then a fully loaded or elite equipped, which most of our customers tend to get, is at $2.75 million.
And there are some changes in the cabin. In fact, I'm leaning on one of these items right now. Let's talk about those.
Yes, we do have some changes in the configurations within the cabin. Our popular configuration in the last few years has been the 7-seat configuration, where you have 5 adult seats and 2 smaller seats for some smaller occupants. One of the things we took from our customers and how they operate the airplane, and even how we operate our airplane, a lot of the times we're only flying with 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 people. So we kind of realized there's a configuration in here that we can take advantage of and really create that overall cabin experience for everybody in the airplane. So we added wider seats in the second row. We call them executive seating. And we also added a center console that fits between those 2 seats that has extra storage, that has a tray table, that overall just kind of maximizes that cabin experience for flights that have less than 4 people or less. Another thing to point out about the configuration is it's 100% additive to the 7-seat configuration. So the seats come in and out very easily. So you can we're sitting in an airplane that actually has 7 seats and a center console. If it's only 3 of us flying, we can have a center console in. If there's 5 of us flying, we'll just have to remove the center console, keep it in the hangar, or even put it into the baggage compartment and go fly.
So we had a listener question come in back in October, and I've been saving it because I didn't know the answer. But now that I'm sitting with you here, let's go ahead and play that question. I'm sure you give a much better answer than I ever could.
Hi, Max. Launchpad here. In a previous episode, you were talking about the Cirrus jet. When you pull the chute handle in the jet, it'll pitch up the jet. When you pull the handle, it'll cut fuel to the engine and pitch the jet up until it hits, I believe you said 150 knots. Then it'll blow the parachute. Okay, what if the jet is in an unusual attitude? Is it still going to issue the jet a back stick command? Or will it, like the little blue button in the Cirrus 22 Perspective, try and bring you wings level first, then fire the chute? If it's in an unusual attitude, will it forego all of this and just blow the chute immediately because you're already in a weird position?
Okay, great question. Let me ask you to talk first about how the parachute works in the SR-20 and 22 versus how it works in the Vision Jet.
In the SR-20 and 22, so when you pull the caps handle, the parachute immediately deploys. I mean, it just starts that sequence right from that point. The parachute deploys, regardless of what airspeed you're at, what attitude you're at. The system just goes. On the Vision Jet, when you pull the handle, it actually starts a sequence of events. And the first event of that sequence is the autopilot will try to bring the airplane wings level and pitch up to reach the proper airspeed. Then that will start the sequence of deploying the actual parachute. Now, realizing that sometimes not all situations will allow the autopilot to do just that, there's actually a timer in there, and the system's smart enough to realize that it's not doing what it wants the airplane to do, so it will immediately deploy the caps.
So if the aircraft is upside down, is it going to potentially try to roll the aircraft right side up?
It will give a try, and again, if it doesn't see any kind of correction, it will immediately pull the caps.
And just for the record here, what speed does it try to slow the aircraft to before it deploys the chute?
So on the Vision Jet, it does not actually have a caps deployment airspeed. I mean, you'll see that on the SR. You do not see it on the Vision Jet, mainly because the autopilot will bring it to the proper airspeed. That's really between, I think it's about 130, 140 knots.
Let's talk just a little bit more about Flight Stream. That's one of the features that I've really enjoyed in the SR-22. Wasn't available in the original jet. Sounds like you'll be able to retrofit it to existing Vision Jets. Talk about all the different kinds of things pilots can do with Flight Stream.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest advantages, you're able to flight plan at home or in the hangar beforehand. You can, get your clearance. You can get, everything on your Garmin Pilot or ForeFlight app. And when you start flying the flight levels, the clearance is going to start to get complex. When you turn on your airplane and the phone is connected to your avionics, you can then transfer that flight plan into your avionics. So you're pretty much foregoing the inputting of the various waypoints, airways, which could be lengthy, into the avionics. Another thing that it gives you is, because you have that connection with the avionics, you can now use your iPad, whatever your mobile device is, and you can start seeing the moving map. You can start seeing all the traffic that's in the area, and gives you just kind of a second source of information of what's going on the flight deck. One of my favorite features, especially in the Vision Jet, when you're flying up in the flight levels, you are pretty isolated. Your cell phone is not really ever working. It's never hitting a cell phone tower or anything. If I need to communicate with anybody on the ground, I can use the Iridium network, which I can make phone calls or text messaging, but now I can actually use the Garmin Pilot app in order to use the contacts from my phone and actually use my mobile device as the input for that communication.
So you mentioned that about 90 Vision Jets are out there in the wild. Tell us about the current production rate, what the backlog looks like, and what if somebody couldn't wait that long to get a jet?
So Cirrus Aircraft is looking to produce about 80 Vision Jets this year, and we have a backlog of about 540 position holders waiting for their airplanes. But realizing that's a pretty long backlog, there is some customers who are looking to see if they can get an airplane today, and there is opportunities, whether if it's demo aircraft or some other opportunities happen with some position holders. The biggest thing is contact Cirrus Aircraft, and we'll try to figure out a way to get a Vision Jet for your needs.
I've certainly become very impressed with Cirrus over the years. Just so people know, tell us a little bit about your responsibilities, and then if Cirrus is hiring, just talk about the kinds of positions that they're looking for, because I'm sure there are people out there that would love to work for this company.
Absolutely. So I think I have probably the best job in the company. I get to fly Vision jets around for combination of things, for marketing purposes, for promotional purposes. Also work quite a bit with our engineering to develop new products and try to figure out, what the next thing is. And also get to work with our sales team and kind of helping them support them through the sales process. And Cirrus Aircraft is growing substantially. And we're always looking for great talent, whether if you're a pilot, a mechanic, engineer, marketing. We have positions that are constantly available to anybody who's looking.
Matt, I got to tell you, I'm envious. In a prior life, I was a product manager for a computer company. And boy, this looks like one heck of a lot more fun to me. Thank you so much for your time talking with us today.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Well, the Cirrus Vision Jet is just one fun jet to fly. I was out flying in one again last weekend. And, I've always loved great design. And to me, the Cirrus Vision Jet cockpit is just elegant simplicity. By the way, Cirrus may have been the number 1 or number 2 top-selling general aviation jet model in 2018, and GAMA, the General Aviation Manufacturers Association, will have the final numbers out in late February, and we'll know then for sure. Also, if you're interested in buying any model of Cirrus airplane or jet, or are interested in flight training in one, please contact me today. We can have a free consultation, and in some cases, I can also arrange a free demo flight for you. And I'd be happy to talk with you about the ins and outs of buying new versus used. Just pick up the phone, call me 650-967-2500, or go to aviationnewstalk.com and click on Contact at the top of the website. I specialize in the Cirrus and work with people around the world. Also, please check out our Patreon site and consider becoming a supporter of the show. I really try and add a couple of new supporters every month, so if you'd like to be the first new supporter for February, please sign up to donate a few dollars every month via credit card just by going out to our Patreon site at aviationnewstalk.com/awesome. And if you would, please take just a moment to take our latest listener survey, which is about social media. I'd love to understand what social media you use. Do you use Facebook, Instagram, Twitter? What things do you like? What don't you do? Because I'd like to try and find more people like you and expose them to the Aviation News Talk podcast. A lot of new listeners find us through social media, so I just want to find out, where do you hang out? So if you would, go out to aviationnewstalk.com/survey and let us know about your interactions with social media. And finally, please take a moment to show your aviation friends how they can get the Aviation News Talk podcast. And if they don't really know what a podcast is, and most people don't, just send them to the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store to download our dedicated Aviation News Talk podcast apps for iOS and Android. Once you're in the App Store, just search for Aviation News Talk. Did I mention? Yep, those apps are free. So until next time, fly safely, have fun, and keep the blue side up.